All right, Kurt, I've got a question for you. Have you ever looked back at your day and realized that one tiny decision actually completely changed how everything played out?
Every single week, Ben. I mean, sometimes it's as simple as hitting the snooze one more time. Other times it's bigger, like deciding finally to call someone that I've been avoiding. And so, what we're talking about here is inflection points.
That's right. That's what today's episode is all about. Those little decision moments that don't always feel like big deals until they are. But these are what we call, as Kurt said, inflection points.
Yeah, so there are those forks in the road, and our lives are filled with countless numbers of them. Moments when we make decisions that steer the course of action in that moment and that subsequently impact our day or even our future. And they're not always the obvious dramatic, quit your job, move to Bali kind of decisions. In fact, most of them are small. Or should I go to the gym? Should I scroll through my phone? Do that? Should I answer this email now or let it sit for a while? Reach out to a friend or let the silence grow?
I don't know. Quit my job and move to Bali sounds kind of nice, but you know.
No, you're not doing that. No,
All
no.
right.
Okay.
Well, really, though, what's sneaky here is that those small ones, the little ones we're talking about, not the quit your job and move to Bali ones, they happen to stack up and they can really shape the direction of your life when they do.
Yeah, exactly. They compound, and that's the real kicker here, right? And the problem is that we don't realize that we're at one of these crossroads. In that moment, they're these quiet little moments. They're easy to overlook. It's the snooze button one more time. It's the scrolling piece. But they still matter.
They do. And with that in mind, let's take an opportunity to break this down a little bit. What psychologically is happening in these inflection moments?
So, Ben, there's a couple things, right? One is that we often fall into this binary thinking component. Our brains love this black and white, right or wrong, yes, no, win or fail, do or don't do kind of decisions. But
Mhm.
life isn't binary, it's on a spectrum, a continuum, right? Most of our choices aren't in one dramatic moment, they're shades of meaning and subtle shifts. So when we treat decisions as this all or nothing, we often miss this richness, the nuance that we have there, and that actually can limit our options.
So, really, what we're doing is we're like oversimplifying the decision or oversimplifying the scenario.
Yeah, so oversimplification can lead to what we call misalignment, right? And with our actual values, our goals, Annie Duke, who we've talked to on the other podcast, Behavioral Grooves, a couple different times, has this idea that instead of asking what's the right decision, we should be asking what are the possible outcomes and what are the ranges, and that's kind of what she calls the archer's mindset. Instead of hitting this, target in the bullseye, at least let's get it onto the target.
Yeah, and I love this concept. I think it's really great. One of her best ones, because it's really less about hitting that bullseye and more about understanding what the target that you're trying to get on is. Right? We're not going to hit the
Yeah.
bullseye first try every time, and a lot of people try to aim for that as opposed to getting started and getting moving and moving in the right direction. And this is around that idea that we need to be making decisions that are moving us in that right direction as opposed to sitting and waiting until it's perfection, right? And we need to set that North Star approach to be effective.
Exactly. And when you start to see inflection points as a range of possibilities and not just a pass fail, you tend to make better, more aligned decisions. And especially with those middle of the road ones, not necessarily the Netflix autoplay kind, like, oh, we're just going to watch the next Netflix movie because it's on autoplay. And not the move across the country or quit my job and go to Bali type, but those in between stuff. The ones like, ooh, I have a big important meeting tomorrow that I need to be sharp at. Do I go to bed early tonight so that I get a full night's rest and be able to do that? Do I put that 10% of my bonus into savings, or do I just use that to buy something impulsive? It's those kind of middle of the road decisions where that North Star comes in really, really importantly.
And these are decisions everyone's making at all times every day,
Y-
right?
Yeah, we're making them all the time, right?
Yep. And so with that in mind, what do we do with this knowledge? Where do we take this from here?
So here's the piece is we need to notice and we need to care. Oftentimes we go through life too fast where we're not making we're not in the moment, we're not thinking about the moment, we're just going through the motions, right? We're not caring, right? And those decisions that we make at those inflection points, particularly those middleweight ones, the ones that I talked about before, aren't just about now. They're about who we're going to be, and they shape the pattern of our lives. And over time, those patterns make a big impact, right? So if I want a life that feels meaningful, I want a life that feels aligned, I want a little less chaotic life, then I need to start paying attention to those decisions. And even those decisions like going to bed early because I have an important meeting tomorrow, those end up being pretty big in the long run.
And I think it's pretty safe to say that most people look for a more fulfilling life. So this is something that can really, really help people,
Yeah.
make that happen. Which makes me think that you're about to start telling me about chess again.
Why would I tell you about chess again? So,
I mean,
yeah.
you're better at it than me, so
So here's the piece, right? Is that oftentimes we feel time pressured, right? And when we feel rushed, we get into this again, binary thinking comes up a lot more, whether it's urgency of making the decision because we're time pressed, it's fatigue, and I just want to get done with this, or it's just the habit or the shortcuts that we fall into, right? We have these mental heuristics, these emotional reactions, and we act before we think. And that's when we make choices that might not align with our best interests. And so I'll go to the chess, right? Example. So I've played online chess with a group of friends for many, many years. I had hair when it started, so it was a long time ago.
it's a
And the
long
games
time
are
ago.
yeah, thank you very much, Ben. Yes, a long time ago. So, and the games are asynchronous. In other words, we have up to 3 days to make a move. So I make a move, and then I wait, and then I go back out on the app, and Rick or Mark or Paul haven't made another move, or they have made a move, and then I get to make a move, and then they have 3 days to make their move, et cetera, et cetera. But I noticed something. I noticed that um, when I didn't rush those moves, when I really thought about the board as opposed to just kind of scrolling through, oh, there's a thing. Oh, I got to get going. I got a couple minutes before my meeting. I'll play this. I'll play this, right? It's that moment of being kind of in the rush, or maybe taking some time to think about it, take a look at the board. I'd mess up when I made those quick decisions. I would make a stupid move that all of a sudden in retrospect, I go, "What was I doing?" I have definitely done really idiotic moves. I've given up a perfectly good queen to a pawn. Game over, right? I mean, that's
Ouch.
not what you want to do in chess.
No. Anyone who plays chess knows that's a painful one. And
Mhm.
I'm guessing your friends have not let you live that one down.
No, they kind of remind me of that all the time. So, yeah.
All right. Well, that's a painful one, but let's move on. What's the takeaway from all of this talk about inflection points?
Yeah, so that moment, deciding whether to pause or to think or to just act quickly is an inflection point. And the outcome of that inflection point often ripples, just like in life. So that chess game, I gave up my queen, or even if it wasn't maybe my queen, maybe I just made a stupid move and put my bishop in the wrong spot. And so, 4 moves down the board, if I would have made a better move, it could have been a much better game for me. And that's like life. Those inflection points, those decisions that we make at any moment have an impact downward. Some are going to be much more impactful. Losing a queen is very different, or doing a perfect, like I'm trapping a knight, or doing a fork, or some other type of move that I think and see and think about a couple moves down the chessboard. Well, those are going to be the ones that I want to make, right? So when we build awareness, when we pause, when we give ourselves the chance to even briefly just take a breath before we make those decisions, we give ourselves a much better chance to make a good choice, and that serves not just our current self, but our future self as well.
Which is what we all need to be striving for. And it sounds like
I think
awareness
so.
isn't just about noticing that moment. It's about taking the time to respect that moment, recognize that it matters, even if it's small, and really reflect on it and take it seriously.
Exactly. It's about being a little bit more intentional. We've talked about this before on the show, right? A little less reactive, a little more intentional. It's how we find our groove, not in one big decision moment, but in the quiet accumulation of better choices over time.
So what can our listeners take away from this? What can they, take action on, especially when time pressure is real? I mean, we're all under the clock, right? We're all making decisions all day, every day. How do we pause, stop that pressure, and you know take action upon this in an effective way?
So you can't stop that time pressure, right? Time goes on. We're going to be under this pressure. We're going to feel fatigued. We're going to have all of those moments that come into our life, but you can shape how you respond. You can shape how you respond to those moments of pressure. You can build a groove or a rhythm where your default reactions are better serving your future self and not just being kind of rote in the moment, rules of thumb that you're going to be doing. And that's the behavioral design aspect of this, right? So create those habits, create those routines, create those mindsets that tilt you towards your habits.
And I think another thing, what to go back to Annie Duke's Archer's mindset here, right? Thinking about this, letting yourself be freed by the fact that these inflection points, while they make an impact, they're not final exams, right? It's not about hitting that perfection. It's about making a move. It's about getting on the board. It's about moving in the right direction. And you do not have to get it perfect every time or ever, right?
Right. Yeah, progress, not perfection. Anything that we take, if you take anything out of this, right? It's progress moving towards that North Star, not making sure that you get it exactly right every time. And if you treat each choice like it's part of a bigger story, that it's the, movements of the chess pieces on the board in the middle of the game, you're not at the end of the game. You're not going to win in one move. You then play for a bigger and better element. And I think it gives you yourself, it gives you that room to grow, right?
I love it. So let's give our audience a challenge. Take a moment in the next day, preferably today, since you just listened to it. It's fresh in your mind. It's something that you'll be thinking about while you do. And start to notice those inflection points. Be intentional about it. Just one or two. You don't have to make a whole bullet list here, right? Just be intentional about noticing those moments. And when you do, pause. And in that moment, or you could either go left or right, take a second to ask yourself, is this choice helping build the future version of me that I want to become?
Right. Because that future self, that's a real you. And that future self is counting on you.
Love it. Well, thank you everybody for tuning into Behavior Shift again, and we will see you next time.